Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wind, Reel, and Print. My name is Ryan.
And this is your co-host, Kevin.
My co-host, not the audience's co-host.
No one else's.
Kevin's talking to me.
Yeah.
Looking me in the eyes.
I am.
Today we are talking about vampires.
Vampire!
Vampires! Looking at 4 vampire films. Obviously, vampire films and just vampires in general are so ingrained in pop culture.
Yeah.
You can see so many different variations of them throughout all, also just like so vital in the history of film too.
Sure.
Came on pretty early.
Right.
And filmmaking has been a predominant way that we have come to understand the vampire, because the way people thought about vampires in the 1800s is very different than what we thought now. And even like you watch the 1931 Dracula, a lot of different things happen in that than you would expect a vampire movie to do nowadays.
Right. And we're talking about movies made by vampires.
Yes, exactly. So we're watching Apocalypse Now. We're watching... Funny enough, we're still watching the Fearless Vampire Killers. Yeah.
Right.
Roman
4
Polanski,
vampires, 5 vampires.
Yeah, Roman Polanski is famous vampire. That was good.
Oh, good shit.
But sadly, there just aren't enough in the category of vampire movies made by vampires. So we stuck with human-made vampire films, and we
the second best thing.
The second best, maybe even third best. I'm curious in a werewolf-made.
Yeah. Oh, that would be
film.
very interesting. Yeah. Propaganda. Film.
Yeah, exactly. But we chose 4.
That would be so funny.
Yeah. That's very meta.
That's a super meta movie.
Yeah.
Of a bunch of werewolves trying to make a vampire movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's great. That's next level of what we do in the shows.
That's the first Wind, Reel, and Print produced film. So we chose 4 vampire movies, and they feel, from a distance, they feel like they kind of hit different things.
So different.
And so it's 1931's Dracula, the Bela Lugosi starring vampire film, created by Universal, which is like the most infamous and famous vampire film.
Infamous and famous.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
They're everything.
It's everything. Unfamous is that one. I'm also not a word guy. Folks,
it's all good.
So I'm allowed to do whatever I want. I'm allowed to do whatever I want.
Have the freedom.
Yeah. Language is made
temporary.
Up and temporary, and I just set a new standard. Okay?
No, it can be
Thank you.
All things and no things at the same time.
The way Kevin's body language is saying that he feels bad for me. That they feel bad for me. Okay.
No, I'm vampire.
Oh, hi. The next one is Roman Polanski's The Fearless Vampire Killers, or Pardon Me, But Your Teeth Are in My Neck. Shortened to The Fearless Vampire Killers, originally released in the United Kingdom as Dance of the Vampires. But I guess there is a full title that they didn't go with in the... no, it is on the poster, actually. And this is I guess you'd call it like it feels like a sex comedy, like a 60s sex comedy sort of thing.
Right.
So we are now, we basically have 2 vampire parody films in this, in this kind of group of 4.
Sure.
Because this is obviously, it's playing with the
tropes.
Yeah, the tropes and the stereotypes and making it humorous and finding all that. And obviously what we do in the shadows does that a lot.
Right. It's interesting how Fearless Vampire Killers is like a parody of Dracula, and then What We Do in the Shadows is like a parody of Interview with the Vampire.
Yeah.
Like, how these two films
just
mirror
happened
each other.
that way. Yeah, that was not intentional.
Right.
And then so after Fearless Vampire Killers...
No, it was intentional.
It was intentional?
No, I don't know.
we have to believe. Okay, if we say it, it becomes true, and we don't want people to know that. A lot of times we don't have a plan.
No, everything's intentional.
Yeah, everything's intentional. Everything's intentional.
Cut that out.
Cut that out. The next one that we watched was Interview with the Vampire.
Yeah.
The 1994 American Gothic horror film directed by Neil Jordan, based on a novel of the same name by Anne Rice.
This one should have been a sex comedy.
That would have been interesting. This one, I was thinking. I was thinking.
Just love your reaction.
I'm trying to move things along.
I know.
Kevin.
I'm sorry. Derailing everything.
Is this the first in wine, reel, and print history? Is this the first Brad Pitt movie?
In wine, reel, and print history?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think it's the first Tom Cruise too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
I mean, obviously.
All of these people. I think Antonio Banderas and Christian Slater.
Oh yeah. I guess Christian Slater too. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, because we don't watch that many like Hollywood movies.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. Yeah, because I was thinking, I'm like, obviously they're so famous. It's just we've never.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah.
You've done a pretty good job.
Yeah, exactly. So this is our first time with real movie stars.
Yeah, real vampires.
Real vampires.
Well, actually, in Bowfinger, they do mention this movie.
Oh, do they?
Yeah.
I don't remember, actually.
He's like, I'm pretty sure Tom Cruise didn't know he was in that vampire movie until 2 years later.
Oh, that's good. Those are the things that just totally went over my head, and I just didn't even realize it. Now I would probably get it. And then finally, the 2014 New Zealand mockumentary horror comedy film written and directed by Jermaine Clement and Taika Waititi, What We Do in the Shadows, which is the one that I've seen probably a dozen times in my life. I am
it's
huge.
Great.
Yeah, I love it so much. It's so fun. So yeah, these are the 4 movies. They look at the genre in interesting ways, and even Interview with the Vampire is breaking molds too, that are kind of set by these things. And obviously
it is like a meta examination of like the vampire tropes and stuff. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. And it turns up the dial on some aspects of like vampirism. Does some really interesting things as well.
Yeah.
In regards to like children.
Right.
And there's something really interesting about like adding that element to it.
Right. The like thing about not growing up and stuff like that.
Yeah. It's not, it's nice when you watch a
Peter Pan.
Yeah, exactly. It's nice when you watch a movie like this or hear a story like this that thinks about, oh, what if,
right.
You know, like just beyond like, oh, it's some scary monster.
Like the kind of human
yeah.
aspects of like how this experience would go.
And obviously we were just chatting before this, how realism can a lot of times be kind of like a really negative force in making a good movie, but sometimes
it can be an
interesting thing to cut against.
Yeah.
When you start to kind of think about, all right, how do we, and maybe that's even what makes realism more palatable.
Yeah.
Is when, because obviously this is not like, you wouldn't watch this and be like, oh, that's not realistic or whatever, right?
But it is trying to play into this idea of realism.
Yeah, exactly. What if they were real more than like Dracula 1931 was doing?
Right.
I think something to point out as well is that Nosferatu is not here. We didn't watch Nosferatu, but
in the collection.
But we're saving our Nosferatu fix for the
Eggers.
Nosferatu trilogy.
Yeah.
We'll do a oh my
Eggers.
God. Yeah, an Eggers, Herzog.
Yeah, and then the OG one.
Yeah. Oh my God. What's the name?
Marnu.
F.W. Murnau.
Yeah, Murnau.
Yeah. And I probably said that wrong.
Yeah, I mean,
but I know that's what it is. Yeah. So yeah, that's an interesting thing, and I think just to talk about Nosferatu just a little bit, that is considered like it's not the first vampire movie, but it is like defining one. Yeah. Exactly, it's the defining one. It created Count Olaf or whatever.
And Dracula, they like sued the guy, right?
Yes. So it was so 1-to-1 with Bram Stoker's Dracula, the novel, that they sued, won, and the punishment was they had to destroy all of the Nosferatu films. And so in 1994, out of the 5 surviving copies that survived destruction, they compiled, and that's the version that you can see today.
Wow.
Yeah. And talk about just like...
You know your...
I did... I read a little bit Wikipedia before I came here.
Yeah.
But that's just a really... I mean, talk about how close we were to losing a film. It's actually absolutely disturbing and disgusting.
Most films from...
Yeah, exactly.
Pre-1940 are like
when we do
edging along extinction. When
we do our Martin Scorsese interview, we'll talk a lot about that.
Yeah, that'll be the center of our conversation.
Exactly, because I know Marty likes to talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of great movies because of him.
Yeah.
You know, because he went and preserved these like third world country sort of movies, you know, that like wouldn't have otherwise been preserved or saved or whatever.
And so just obviously preserve your movies, folks.
Put it on a hard drive.
God, scan that
back
shit.
It up, back that shit up.
4K scan, 8K scan.
For film, it's kind of crazy how like delicate these things are, and how like there's this one when I was at SF State, they would have people come in for like little talks or whatever, and they had a guy from the academy come in who was a film preservationist.
Ooh.
And he was talking about how people will submit film in the worst conditions. Like there's like dead rats in the can, there's like snake skin in the boxes.
Wow.
It's like people don't really like take care of these things, you know. They're just like thrown in the garage or like left in the shed, and but they're so like sensitive to like everything and stuff. It's pretty crazy. And these are like like most of the time they end up being historical, right? Because they're like capturing a time period and stuff.
Do you know I have a feature film on
film?
I have a film
reel?
Yeah, I've got a film reel.
Like of your film?
No. It is of a feature film.
Which movie?
I don't know. It was like
you got a projector?
We got it at I picked it up.
Sale.
Yeah, it was like it was on sale somewhere, and so we should look at it one of these days. And I think it's like a Western.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah,
got it
when I was living in Arizona.
Makes sense.
But so I keep that in a nice dark place.
Yeah.
And you want to keep these things safe. It is just, and even like I don't know why I have this, but it also feels like it's one of those things where it's like I don't want it to
go away.
Yeah, exactly. I like to
That's something.
have it.
Yeah. I mean, directors collect film prints like all the time.
Oh, what a cool thing to collect.
Yeah, it'd be nice to get to that point.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you got a copy of that thing?
Yeah.
Let me watch that shit.
I mean, the real pinnacle is getting like to have your own little movie theater. Yeah.
With the projector.
And
know how to work it.
Exactly.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
That's what you really want. Because I just want to watch Paris, Texas again.
Yeah.
On film.
Yeah. I want like
or just
my
like the
own
really
viewing
high.
room
Yeah.
in my house, and then like own a theater.
Yeah.
Like as well.
Yeah.
Convenience, and then have like a giant amphitheater type shit.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're talking about something that isn't vampires.
Yeah.
Aren't we?
Yep.
So we're going to move on to the spooky subject. The vampires of Dracula.
Okay. So question.
Yes.
What would you define the vampire movie as? Like, what are some defining traits for you that you saw, let's just say in Dracula, that you kind of see throughout the rest of these films?
Definitely, I think a big one is just the other. And othering.
Explain.
Yeah, so obviously
Edward Said.
Yes. There is a... obviously, foreigners...
It plays a huge part in...
It plays a huge part in these. And I think that's like... There is just like... There's something really interesting about like how other vampires are. Like they aren't even up at the same time of day as everyone else. They I mean, I think you get this a lot more in Interview with the Vampire, of like how they really have to stay at arm's length from people in general to even exist. So I think there's just because I mean, I'm thinking about Dracula and how he lives in a castle all by himself. He is a foreigner and has like a very thick accent, which would come to be the basically set the standard of how Dracula is played with a Hungarian accent. And there is this, you know, he lives on the castle on the hill. The villagers all know about him, and you don't go over there, or you don't go to these places because of that person.
Right. Yeah, that's in like Fearless Vampire Killers.
Yeah, I guess there's that too. And so, yeah, I'm not sure exactly how far the commentary goes on and what exactly it says, but that would just be it's a point on the board, I guess.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
What about you? Is there what's something that pops up first thing?
I like watching Dracula made me think like, oh, German Expressionism.
Oh, sure.
Like clearly.
Yeah.
Influenced here. But a lot of the shots were really interesting. In Dracula. But yeah, I found it pretty hard to find like a clear through line in terms of like these 4 movies.
Yeah, because I remember when we had kind of talked about doing this, there was the gay theme or just queer.
Okay, cool, yeah.
You know, that was something that you had mentioned. So I definitely went into these kind of thinking about that.
Sure. Did you, yeah.
I mean, I do and I don't. I think
some do and some don't.
Some definitely do. Some really lean into that.
Right. Like Interview with the Vampire.
Yeah, exactly. And some of them they do end up being very sexual.
Yeah.
What We Do in the Shadows is not sexual at all.
Yeah, it's just a comedy.
Exactly, it's just a comedy. But the other two are.
But it could be like an asexual, like gay roommate sort of thing, in my opinion.
Yeah, totally.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
These like weird, like neurodivergent characters.
Yeah, exactly. What happens when you put all the freaks?
It's so funny.
But yeah, and I watched a little bit. I wasn't able to finish it, but Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula,
nice,
with Gary Oldman.
Yeah,
interesting, very interesting. But that one just turns up sex.
Oh, nice.
So much. It's so sexual.
Sure. Yeah. It does feel like, even in Dracula, like heavy sexual undertones throughout the movie. Yeah. In my opinion. Yeah.
And then but you definitely got a gay joke in Fearless Vampire Killers.
Right.
With the son or whatever, who's kind of like looking at Roman Polanski in kind of like a moody way. And I think I was supposed to laugh at that.
Right.
But my tastes are a little different. And then
I mean, yeah,
and then Interview with the Vampire definitely has like this very femme male sort of look, and
I love that
aesthetic.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah,
and they're all freaking hot.
Yeah,
Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt, Banderas, and Slater. They're so great, like casting. And
I mean, it's so early. It's so perfectly early 90s. Like they hit all the buttons.
Yeah.
They got it all.
It's kind of great.
And so, yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything. Obviously, German Expressionism, I completely agree with that. I thought the visuals in Dracula in 1931 were insane and just some of the best of this entire thing.
Definitely had the most beautiful imagery.
Yeah. And it was also because it had no soundtrack. Was
it music? I can't remember.
There was no music. Music came later. At least the version I saw had no music. And it was just so weird. It was so strange. And if I remember correctly, because they didn't know this movie was going to be a success. And so they were just trying to save money. And not only that, at the exact same time, or maybe literally right after, but same sets and everything, they filmed a Spanish language version
of this
movie with different actors. So there is a Spanish language 1931 Dracula with a whole different cast, same sets and everything.
Wow.
Because it was just a different mode of movie making.
Well, they didn't have like dubbing and subbing, so they would just have to do that. Or that may be a reason. I know they do that in India a lot.
That they dub things over? No,
they'll like make a movie and then make the same movie but in like a different language. Yeah. But like with different people and like everything.
Yeah, because I know it's crazy the dubbing that happens with Indian movies.
Yeah.
It's interesting, and I know there's probably even like political reasons why they do different things they do.
Different industries just have different approaches to filmmaking. Like Italy, maybe this is why I'm gonna draw draw
the line, draw the conclusion.
I think because Italy is known for doing that. That's like a standard in that country is that they dub everything. They don't shoot audio on set. And then Satyajit Ray is like kind of I would almost say like the godfather of like Indian cinema in a way. Like I don't know how much of that is true, but you know, a lot of his filmmaking practices come from studying Italian filmmaking and stuff like that. I don't know. There could be something there. I don't know.
But Satyajit Ray does not dub. Did
I don't know.
Yeah, because at least
I don't know.
I don't. Yeah,
I didn't really know.
Well, good.
But I can, anyways, besides the point.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Interesting history behind Dracula and how it's interesting that this movie would come to define everything and was not even. It was so early in movie making. This is actually I think I read Dracula is the second most popular character in film in terms of like how many times the characters appeared on screen.
Wow.
Can you guess the first one?
Godzilla or King Kong?
No.
On screen.
I'll give you one more guess.
Jesus.
No.
Wow.
But that's a good guess. Sherlock Holmes.
Okay. Wow.
And I think maybe just because we're not British.
Yeah.
It probably is just a lot
make a
bigger
shit ton of movies.
Yeah, a ton of movies, tons of shows.
Yeah, I was thinking like some serial, like a Charlie Chan or whatever.
Yeah. Or the Hardy Boys or something like, something of that. Charlie Chan. Yeah, yeah.
Something like that. Yeah. You know, I'm sure. I mean, that's probably what Sherlock is.
You were right on the money. Yeah. I mean, that's definitely. So it's interesting that this would come to define it. It was the first, like, watching this kind of realize how much wolves play into
the Dracula,
the Dracula theme and the vampire theme. That you don't really. Oh, I think you do get it a little bit in Fearless Vampire Killers. I think there's some wolf action.
There's something with the howling. I forget. These are all like conglomerate.
Yeah, they conglomeratized in our brains.
Yeah. I think I remember something about howling and stuff.
Yeah, but just an interesting.
And the way they play it in What We Do in the Shadows.
What do you mean?
With the wolves.
Are you talking about the werewolves?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's so good. It was so funny. That standoff is so great.
Plays so long, but kind of awesome.
Yeah. And I'm trying to think. I mean, what more is there to say about Dracula 1931? Set the standard for everything. Really built up what a character can be in film. It was just so addictive.
Yeah.
I think Bela Lugosi's performance.
He's great.
That it just wanted to be emulated time and time again, endlessly. There's some, I mean, the stories about Bela Lugosi are all so interesting as well. And his connection to like, have you ever seen Ed Wood? The Tim Burton movie?
Nope.
I like it a lot, but there's the Bela Lugosi trajectory into like B movies from this. And I think maybe even Dracula was kind of like a B movie, what we'd consider a B movie now, in terms of just kind of like campy maybe, and just kind of like over the top. And maybe that's even just like what German Expressionism can lend itself to be, is like very turned up to 11 style.
Expressionist, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of like the whole vibe is like coloring outside the lines almost. Yeah,
and you get just some just amazing visuals in this I
can only remember this shot like either through a door or something, and Dracula's like walking up the stairs. I can't remember the context, but
very cool.
There's this great imagery in this film.
Yeah. But that's and it was Oh, it's a pre-code too. I'd be interested to know how that might have changed things.
I mean, you definitely get the like sexual undertones with this film, I think. Yeah. In terms of the pre-code stuff, like definitely some allegorization going on, I think. Like subtext.
Yeah.
Especially with the gay thing.
Yeah.
The gay thing.
Yeah, and I'd be curious just what, like, kind of what blood means in all of these things. Because there's something interesting about, like, you know, and I'm going to be
bodily fluids.
Yeah, I mean, there's just something, and it's also just like sucking out the life force. I'm not sucking. I didn't mean it like that. But
yeah, no, but that's
but
part
just
of
like
it.
yeah, there's like this. Yeah, just like your most precious commodity in a way. Like the most precious thing about you is your blood, and that's the thing that's at on the table,
right?
In this world,
life and death.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of where the gay allegory, I think, originates, is in the symbology of the blood sucking, right? The image of like staying in the closet, you know, being in the coffin. Like the way Dracula is like kind of salivating over a young man. You know what I mean? Like these are kind of what I'm referencing to.
Do you think do you think it was intentional?
It's an argument.
Yeah.
Like in terms of whether the filmmakers are intentional, maybe. I could almost maybe argue because there was a lot of films from Hays Code era that are like sexually subtextual.
Yeah.
And more or less gay allegories.
Yeah.
Especially coming from theater and all these sorts of spaces and stuff. But there's also a history of vampire literature being gay allegories as well. So dating back to the 1800s, this has always been a thing. So in terms of it being intentional within the literature, I think that's what the through line is. True. You know what I mean? Like just the idea of the vampire is what translates the thing, and not so much the people making the films, right? Because you could look at the Fearless Vampire Killers. This is not a homosexual subtext at all. You know, there's like they make gay jokes and stuff like that. But yeah, it's very like. But there is a sexual undertone to it at the same time because it is a sex comedy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So they're definitely playing with those sorts of ideas still, like whether or not it's homoerotic or whatever.
I'd be curious at what point it became more explicit.
Right.
Because obviously by Fearless Vampire Killers, it's explicitly sexual.
Right.
This kind of genre and obviously and definitely Interview with the Vampire.
Right.
And right before Interview with the Vampire was Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula, which is also very explicitly sexual.
Right.
Because when I watched 1931 Dracula, it didn't hit me as much that it didn't have I didn't really feel the overt sexuality of it, but I see what plays in that direction, especially now, like seeing how it's evolved. It's like, you definitely, there is kind of that thing to it. And I mean, especially like the sucking of the blood. I mean, that is so intimate. Right.
Just the image of a person. Yeah. Like suckling on your neck. Like that's very intimate. Yeah. Like you said. I wonder if it's like people just saw this thing as a way to express a certain thing and kind of latched onto that. Cause I know the idea of like vampires being a sexual being is like kind of, I would say like it's kind of an old idea. So I wonder with the new, like especially with Polanski, like in the 60s and 70s when sex is like more of a charged up thing in our society, like if that propels vampires back into the new light of like discussing these sorts of genres within the new cultural context of sex and stuff like that.
I think that's probably a perfect transition to talk about Fearless Vampire Killers.
Yeah.
We can dive into that maybe a little bit.
We both didn't like this movie.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was just made for another era, another time.
I guess. Another demographic.
Yeah, that's kind of how it felt. Like, it feels like something that I'd see sometimes when I'm visiting my in-laws. Turner Classic Movies is on, and you'll see kind of like a random thing from like the 60s or whatever on. This felt like it existed in that realm of just like...
Sure.
And it felt very like... There's just like a whole swath of movies like beach comedies and even like the Beatles movies of that era. Like there's just kind of this goofy comedy thing that was happening. Sure. And this definitely feels like it is in that realm.
Yeah. I didn't quite grasp it. I mean, I get what it is, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. Redacted.
Yeah, I mean, what is it trying to say? I don't think it's trying to say anything.
I think that's what I was.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's. I think it is very.
It's just meant to be entertaining.
Yeah, it's just meant to be like a funny movie.
It was
sometimes
goofy,
those are the hardest ones to talk about in some way because then you kind of get into film reviewing and stuff like that. And I mean, it's just this movie exists and it's just like well, I guess what say what you want to say.
I mean, I feel like it's pretty easy to discuss how much the director imbues this film, like in terms of like ideas and like way of viewing the world. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. I mean,
from the limited things we understand about Polanski, I feel like this
does feel
like it comes through, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah. Especially because he's in it too.
Yeah, which I didn't realize that was him until like 3/4 of the movie.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I was like, oh shit, that's like him.
Yeah, it feels like an excuse to get with the lady.
Yeah.
I
was like,
sort of
that's
stuff.
so wrong.
Yeah, I was watching it because I knew it was Polanski from the start, but I just was like, man, this set just feels like it was uncomfortable. Like, I feel like, and I mean, it was probably a given at that era. You know, they probably weren't very good, but I was just watching, like,
yeah.
There's just a lot of weird
setups and stuff. Like the dad or like that woman taking a bath like all the time.
Yeah.
It's like such a weird story plot element. Yeah.
And it was so funny when it was like, oh, I'm supposed to be laughing here.
Right.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Like recognizing what's supposed to be the joke and stuff. Yeah. I did feel like the movie dragged on for much too long. Like it overstayed, I would say. Like, even though it's only 108 minutes, but like the ending, like, man, that was like a tough ending.
Yeah.
Just like kept going and painful. Like these guys are so, okay, I'm getting back into it. These guys are so dopey.
Yeah.
These guys are both idiots.
Yeah.
There's no one like able to do anything right. And it's just like frustrating. You're like, come on, just do the damn thing and get it over with.
Yeah. It's meant to lay the groundwork for hijinks.
Yeah. Considering it's a parody, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah. Interesting that Sharon Tate stars in this.
Right.
And I guess was married to Polanski. Maybe was married to Polanski when she was killed. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
But that's just a little interesting thing. Once I saw her name, I'm like, oh, wow, I forget that she was in movies in this era.
Right.
You just kind of know her from the Manson murders.
Right. Once Upon a Time.
Once Upon a Time.
No, in Hollywood.
Huh?
The movie.
Yeah, I know the movie.
Okay,
yes,
I thought
I didn't get it at first. What you were saying. I mean, I was just repeating what you were saying.
Okay,
that's just what I do sometimes. Is I just repeat it like a parrot.
Yeah, I was just making sure that.
Yes.
Okay.
But also it worked with the way you were saying it too.
But also yes.
Yes.
I mean that's yeah. That's what's so great about
just talking and words. They mean so many different things.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, it was great. The sets were cool. The world was interesting. Like I thought the construction of these vampire, like the society thing, like I don't know if that was in Dracula, but it was in Interview with the Vampires and What We Do in the Shadows, right? Like this vampire party thing that like people are going to. I thought that was like an interesting part of the lore, which I was like, how does this fit into?
Yeah, what is that? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like kind of these underground parties and
right.
Secret clubs and things.
Sure,
so you don't want to get caught.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, what does that say about like these things? I think your commentary about like immigrants and stuff is like super interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I never really considered that in terms of this. Yeah.
Yeah. That one just feels obvious just because of language.
Sure, yeah. I mean, 100%, right?
Yeah, exactly. And there is like
the gypsies and stuff.
Yeah.
Like that whole like European mindset of like othering certain groups, right?
Yeah.
Especially of this region and stuff.
And I think especially in like the early 1900s, I mean, just when film started, othering Eastern Europeans was huge.
It's
and they
normal,
were like, yeah, exactly.
normalized.
They were really shit on.
Right.
And so it's not surprising that
if you could believe that.
Yeah. I mean, still there is still like this like hick version of them.
Yeah.
But obviously there's a lot of cultures that get a lot of shit from the right
media.
culture.
Yeah. the
correct culture.
Yeah, because even in 2012, I'm like, these are some nasty
stereotypes
on like people.
Yeah.
And this is like,
yeah.
But anyways,
it's part of it's part of this podcast and watching so many movies is that you really see perspectives on people.
Yeah.
And just how long it's taken to. I mean, and obviously, in reality, it's a very short amount of time. And
we haven't really gone that far.
And we really haven't. I mean, it's been like just a little over 100 years that we've even been making movies.
Right.
But man, it's just like they made so many movies with really terrible stereotypes and so many. And some great movies are just like, oh wow,
this is rough.
And not to say that it wasn't like I mean, there were certain people knew like that's not good, but it was just the norm. And, you know, if you're not doing it, someone else is, and it's just terrible.
That's just like what the culture was built on.
Yeah. And like where the money was, who was being handed the like things.
Like all these studios, they wanted to make these movies. You know, that was the thing. They didn't want to make like realism movies.
What is an Eastern European produced and made Dracula? You know? Interesting.
Nosferatu.
Yeah. I don't know. Because it definitely, my understanding of Nosferatu is I mean, definitely from watching I have not seen it, but definitely watching like the Robert Eggers trailer. It's so sexual.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I know there definitely is like a lot of like the girl on the bed and the shadow like coming in, like those really classic images that Nosferatu created.
Sure. Ooh, I can't wait.
But yeah, I'm so excited. Yeah.
I'm so excited.
I just can't hide it. I don't know the rest. Come on. This is your musical break brought to you by
Wind, Reel, and Print.
Wind, Reel, and Print. Get your package of 3D glasses today. Well, that's funny. Fearless Vampire Killers. It is a step in a direction parodying what we kind of know.
Right. Upping the antics.
It definitely...
Upping the sexuality.
Yeah. It definitely was definitely a bright movie. Not really brooding. It was kind of like, especially in terms of lighting. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's a comedy, and they weren't trying to make it super moody.
Right.
So you have a very bright movie. It feels like all the images in my head that I remember, it was just like
colors.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of lights. Like you don't really. Yeah.
Towards the end, I would say.
Does it get a little more?
I would say they get a little moodier and they go wider.
Yeah.
I think, like, I just remember when they're walking around the fucking roof and shit, like, those shots were, like, crazy
like
wide.
Perspective. And
just showing the whole castle, like, the people in the graves coming out, and, like, it was just I was like, wow, this is really
They used such a wide aspect ratio for this film.
Yeah.
Like that was also something that kind of caught me off guard a little bit too. Was like, dang, like, I think it was like this 1960s like love of that kind of Panavision really wide frame.
Right.
But sometimes, it's just like it works in some things. Not to say it doesn't work, but like it feels like there are movies that take better advantage of like a super wide frame than just like interiors. Sex comedies.
Yeah. That seems like the worst possible.
Right. Thing. Yeah. I could think of worse. Let's think. There's got to be worse. Much worse. What's
a wide aspect ratio inside a house is like they tell you don't do that.
Yeah.
Or I don't know. I feel like anyone who shoots inside shoots boxier, like Lighthouse or just like any play or whatever.
Yeah. Perfect for landscapes. Perfect for your Western.
Yeah, landscapes are perfect for Westerns.
Yeah.
Blockbusters.
Yeah.
I think one of the top 250 was shot on an anamorphic. I can't remember which one.
Only one?
One of them I remember distinctly like had a vampire, had a anamorphic lens.
Are you talking about the top 250 that we'll do an episode on, or are you talking about just top 250 in general?
Top 250 that we're about to talk about.
Oh, got it.
I remember seeing one film that
okay.
I can't remember which one.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Right on. Interview with a Vampire.
Yeah.
Definitely had a lot more to say. A lot more. We're definitely getting into a more modern movie as well.
And I think this movie is more conscious about like commentating on the genre.
Yeah.
Because I think it's like an amalgamation of like the vampire lore pasted across like the story. Like, because you can see delineations of like sections within this movie, right? Like different places that they live in, different characters that they associate with. And I think each of these sort of vignettes speak to a different like vampire culture or vampire idea or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely felt like it had things to say. Yeah. And it had stuff going on. And I think a really interesting thing is that Kirsten Dunst's character, reading here, Claudia, is that little girl. And that I think is the most interesting part of the movie for me, is like this idea of like having a little kid live forever.
Right.
And I guess, I don't know if you know this, but Anne Rice, the author, had a child die young.
Right.
And so there's an aspect of like, okay, this is something that actually means something to her.
Sure, yeah.
And you definitely get that from this, is like, okay, we're exploring this from like a really personal, emotional place.
Sure, yeah.
And I think that's what makes it more redeemable.
Sure.
Too, as just a film.
Because there's purpose.
Yeah, exactly. Because, I just found that to be really just a very interesting element.
Right. A new thing that they're adding to the lore.
I don't know how much you know about the behind the scenes stuff, but I guess it was a nightmare on set. Yeah, and Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt have not worked together since.
Yeah.
So it sounds like it was bad. It also sounds like there was supposed to be a sequel, more Tom Cruise centric ones. There was supposed to be another one because his character, there are more books, I'm pretty sure, and that character kind of
keeps going.
Yeah, where it didn't feel like that character was really the main character. Obviously, Brad Pitt
is the one being interviewed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and Tom Cruise gets the top billing in this, and obviously, it's Tom Cruise. Brad Pitt was just kind of starting.
Yeah,
on the
he
scene.
wasn't Brad Pitt yet.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise.
But it was Tom Cruise really gave it his all. Like, it felt like he really tried on this one.
What do you mean? That's just.
I mean, he's just a wild guy. But man, it was just like where it felt like Brad Pitt was kind of phoning it in a little bit.
I love how you phrase that.
Yeah. It's just, it just was like not a lot of varied expressions.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it is. And that might also be the writing and stuff. And a lot of times you get kind of vampires. There are a lot of brooding. There's a lot of just broodingness.
I mean, I could see where like the filmmaking experience is affecting his mood in terms of acting.
Yeah. And
yeah,
and I guess knowing kind of what happened behind the scenes, it just kind of colored it more for me. Of like, oh, I kind of get this.
Yeah. Because I could see where he's more subdued and like he's brooding maybe, but even just like underplayed,
Yeah.
Whereas Tom Cruise is like balls to the walls, like,
oh, just
I'm a vampire.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just like, I am doing the vampire movie. That's what I was paid to do. I am 100% doing this. I'm doing my own vampire stunts.
I mean, I could see, like, I'm actually flying.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to suck your blood. Yeah. That sounds like something he would do.
I mean, like, Tom Cruise is just a ballistic person in general.
Yeah.
Like, I could see where that could fuck you over as an actor.
Yeah.
And Brad Pitt's so sensitive as a person, I feel like.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
or
you
just
see him and you see like interviews and stuff, and it just seems so reserved and
protected.
quiet. Yeah.
I could just see where he like honors himself,
Yeah.
or just like preserves
what
he needs out of like a work and stuff.
Yeah.
Because the way he talks about Troy, right? Like, he was like, yeah, that was like a shitty movie. After that, I only want to make good movies. Like, that made him be more selective with the movies that he was. And then like, Tarantino talks about this, how Brad Pitt won't schedule himself out like years in advance or months in advance. He always keeps his schedule open for good projects as they come. He always wants to be available for the good thing. Yeah.
Interesting.
So he'll never just like book in advance.
Yeah. It's interesting because there's also like this, like, I don't know how many movies have come out recently where I'm like, there are some actors where you're like, when they come out and they do something, like Emma Stone, I think is an example of like, she still feels like she is willing to do weird stuff. And maybe that's because there's that Yorgos Lanthimos connection.
Well, and she's producing all of her stuff too.
Right.
So she has more say and stuff.
It feels like Brad Pitt, I feel like you just don't see him much anymore. Which is just kind of interesting. But
he was in Bullet Train.
Exactly. But was Bullet Train any good?
I didn't watch it.
Yeah, I didn't watch it either. But it felt like one of those like classic like made for China kind of movies. Like a Czech. Where it's made by a production company there. It's got a lot of action and a lot of movie stars, like classic movie stars that don't hit the same anymore. Right. And that might also be Brad Pitt is from a different era. Yeah. Too.
He definitely is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Tom Cruise too. I mean, Tom Cruise only does Mission Impossible now, basically.
Right. Or his own stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Tropic Thunder.
Yeah, he does these weird. Yeah. Like, what the fuck?
Dude's a freak.
He's a freak. We love it.
We like freaks. I mean, I don't think I like Tom Cruise on a personal level.
Yeah, he's a fucking dickhead.
But should also say Interview with the Vampire. You get some San Francisco love.
Yeah.
We're always here for that.
It opens in San Francisco.
It does.
Yeah.
Yes. We love it.
Bay Area movie.
Yeah, we love getting a little, and they talk about San Francisco multiple times. They there in the 1800s or whatever. And that's just really cool.
Yeah, we love that.
I'm always down for that.
Is that in the book? Do you know?
I don't know, actually. I don't know enough about the book itself.
Well.
But
for another episode.
Yeah, exactly. But it's always cool when you stumble on like
fun little
just like Heaven. I didn't know that was going to be. And I was like, oh my god.
Well, that was for the Bay Area episode.
Well, I thought it was for a.
Was it for something else?
I thought it was like movies that made like. I don't know. Now we're just talking like wine, reel, and print categories. But was it for a Bay Area?
I think it was a Bay Area selection,
Well, then that makes a lot more sense. I just knew it meant something to you growing up.
I see.
That colors it a lot more than it does than the Bay Area aspect.
For sure, yeah. That's like, yeah.
In
terms of Bay Area movie, that's like not.
Yeah.
That's like 3 out of 10 Bay Area movies.
Exactly. It could be anywhere.
Yeah.
And I mean, this could be anywhere too, but I think that there's something interesting about San Francisco queer culture.
Sure.
And how that does kind of lean into, I don't think they really play that up at all or anything. But
you could make a reading.
You could add that to it, the nightlife.
Right.
And what that means.
Right.
I do think that they could have turned up the gayness on this.
I agree.
And I think
they could have gone there.
Yeah, they could have gone there. It was the early 90s. It is what it is.
I mean, they sprinkle it in enough for people to like salivate.
Right. And there is a TV show now based on this material. So good. I think that they turn up the gay in that.
Because I think it's pretty clear, right?
Yeah, I mean...
Even within the book.
Yeah.
I mean, they raise a fucking kid.
Yeah, exactly. They definitely could have done a lot more. And that's probably just a little bit of our sensibilities looking back. Sure. Same thing, we look at Priscilla in the same way too. It's like for the time, this is a thing.
Right.
But
it's like pushing a narrative.
Yeah, but there's even more that we could see this going.
Within the context of today, there's like more potential for sure.
So much more potential to make like some really seriously good commentary.
Right.
Especially, I didn't even think about the raising the kid, but that's a really good, very obvious one.
Yeah. It's like
right in your face. Yeah, there's something so good. Yeah, them fighting over it. Like there is something
like
really
shit.
Yeah. And even like teaching the kid to like kill and eat and stuff like that. There is something like, oh my God, why did you teach the kid that? Like, what are you doing? Like giving them the iPad too early, sort of thing. Like,
getting a cell phone too early. Yeah.
There's something really interesting to that. But
it's cute.
Yeah. And that almost feels like, because I left this movie and I wasn't like super like gung-ho about it, but looking back and even talking to you about it, like there's so many parts that really work
for sure
I like a lot.
There were elements they like for the most part it was like an okay movie for me, but I enjoyed a lot of sections I think and certain like just the way they play up certain like societal stuff, I guess, and gender stuff. It's like an interesting thing.
Antonio Banderas did great too. We didn't really get to talk about him much, but that was that little vampire
cult
thing. Not a coven because that's hags, but whatever vampires have, maybe they call it a cult, I don't know. But that's an interesting thing, and that ends up playing a role in what we do in the shadows,
right?
This kind of larger vampire society,
right?
And focusing on characters that are outside this society, the others, even the others in the vampires. Right. So now we're getting kind of like we're layering other onto other. Who's the other of the other, which is kind of interesting.
Right. Like within the establishment and stuff.
Yeah, because now we're getting to the point where vampires are established.
Yeah.
With these
there's rules, like you can't kill other vampires and stuff.
Interesting that as time progressed, also the
society
they kind of progressed. The society within the films is progressing. Very strange, but I think that's like just the sensibility.
That's like
there is like a cinematic. Maybe world. I guess like the cinematic universe of vampires. Like there is like a continuation of like. Oh, now they
can do this.
Now they can do this. So now that's going to be more predominant. You know, they're killed by snakes or they're killed by sun or they're not wolves anymore. Now they turn into bats and,
Yeah, I liked how each of these films play off of that too, of like, oh, that's just myth or like that's just something they made up.
Yeah.
Like what each film chooses to like stick with as being the truth of vampires and stuff. Yeah, this is like interesting.
Yeah, another meta. Yeah, I guess just vampire films in general have like because they're so ingrained.
Right.
They are great meta material.
Right. Well, I think because they've existed in literature before cinema, it just offers more material to add commentary on top of. And the more we parodize and commentate on this, the more levels that it can get into, right? Like with the meta-ness,
Right on.
Yeah.
Let's we'll get to this last one.
And then, speaking of meta-ness and adding layers.
Talk about just the most of them.
Yeah.
The most of the...
Because I feel like this is taking the previous 3 movies and then like putting it into a blender.
Yes.
And we're just drinking vampire smoothie at this point.
Oh my God. It's just
fun
so...
and sweet and colorful.
Yeah.
And you can put ice cream in it.
Exactly. You can make it so weird and strange and...
like this is peak cinema to me.
Yeah. It's so good. And it's hard to even talk about, but we're coming off of... In 2014, we're coming off of mockumentaries are firmly established.
Yeah.
The Office... Parks and Rec,
Chronicle,
Chronicle. Yeah.
Blair Witch Project.
Yes.
You know,
Paranormal Activity, I think, came out
Paranormal
this
Activity.
year,
Yeah.
or maybe just before
like 2012,
this.
I
think 2012.
Yeah.
So this is 2014.
Right.
So yeah, we've got
it's become its own genre.
It is now a genre. The mockumentary is...
And even reality TV, I think, offers a lot of that, like, aesthetics as well, you know?
Yes.
Woo!
Yeah.
Woo!
I think...
Ryan's hair just flew off. Whoa! That's what's under your wig.
I had sunglasses on my head and they fell back, and now I'm being made fun of.
I'm sorry.
No. You hear that, you guys? You hear that? I think in terms of, so thinking about mockumentaries too, and I think we'll have to do something on this as well. You know, we start with like the obvious, like, this is Spinal Tap. Feels like a really big, because I that almost certainly wasn't the first one.
Yeah.
But
that era, there's a few, like Oblivion and This is Spinal Tap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you get like Christopher Guest films as he comes off of that, because Rob Reiner did This is Spinal Tap, and then Christopher Guest did Best in Show, Waiting for Guffman.
That's based on a play.
Waiting for Guffman? Mm-hmm. Oh, is it?
Well, Waiting for Godot is like
a
pretty famous play.
But is this...
I think it's like some adaptation or whatever.
Yeah,
I forget the relation.
There's some layers to it. Yeah,
I forget the relation, but it's something related to it. Yeah,
I get it. So it's interesting to look at that. I've always been a fan. I like mockumentaries a lot.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I think it's a really cool form. And it feels silly to say it in some ways because it just feels so... Like it just feels like any other sort of way to make something.
Right.
Like it's just another option in the tool.
It's belt. A layer. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's a really cool element. And so, really great works in this element where you have characters that are just kind of catty and are kind of like talking about each other. They're living in a house. It's very reality TV. Now that I think about it, this is like the real world vampires.
Like, hey, welcome to my crib.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Totally that. Yeah. Yes. And that's you brought up reality TV, and I think that absolutely plays into this, where documentary played into it more in the Spinal Tap era.
For sure.
This, I think, takes from reality TV.
More so.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. Because even, like, you could say it's mumblecore.
Yeah. I mean... You
know what I mean?
Yeah, I definitely get... I mean, it's definitely like a...
Like offshoot mumblecore.
Yeah. And I think New Zealand, especially the acting troupe, feels like it goes like Flight of the Conchords obviously came out before this.
Yeah.
And...
It's like sketch comedy-esque.
Yeah. I think there's a... Taika Waititi and Jermaine Clement are kind of like the kings of that kind of comedy from there. Yeah.
Because they have done TV shows a lot, and their previous movies are also really funny. And,
very funny.
Yeah.
It's hard to say. So this movie plays off a lot of these different things. Obviously, you got a Nosferatu, Dracula style character in this.
Piotr.
Yeah, which is so good. Oh my God. You get...
Hey, we're having a house meeting. Just wanted to invite you.
It's... and Taika Waititi obviously is so great in this as just kind of like the mediator that is just trying to get the rent paid or whatever.
Get the dishes washed.
Yeah. And has that sense, that kind of like reality TV character in this.
For sure.
And throwing it all kind of into the blender, like you said. I think it's really funny having like the character that is the... what's Dracula's sidekick's name? Oh my gosh,
I forget. Right here. But having the local kind of
that
what do they
woman,
call it?
Oh my God, what is the guy's name?
Stu. They had Stu.
Renfield.
Renfield. Yeah.
The woman is kind of like the Renfield character, and is expecting to become a vampire
after,
like at a certain point, is like kind of waiting for it, and it's so great to play it in that way. And then Stu Wait, oh no, Stu is the white guy, right?
Yeah,
and
yeah,
he's
yeah.
like the computer guy.
Yeah, yeah.
And they look at Stu as just like
this normal
plump
guy.
and yeah, exactly.
Look, he's so sweet.
Yeah, exactly. It's so good. And then, but they do end up by adding that new character and biting that one guy.
Yeah. Or the girl.
They don't bite the girl. Instead,
he bites Stu. Yeah.
The
new guy.
Yeah, the new guy ends up. So the girl's waiting to be bitten, and then they end up biting the new guy, like bringing him into the group, and that kind of adds a little bit of tension where she's like, "What the heck? I've been waiting for so long."
Doesn't he bite her or something?
I don't think she ever.
She gets powers.
Maybe not until the very end.
She gets powers because her husband is now her person. I remember.
Oh, okay.
I remember this.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. I do not remember that at all. Director's cut? No, I probably am just not remembering.
Yeah, because remember she's like, what the fuck? Why he cut in line?
Yeah.
Like I was supposed to get bitten. And then the new guy starts like telling everyone that he's a vampire.
I do remember that, yes.
And then he ends up biting
he's like going
her.
to the bars and he's like saying all that. It's so
He's like,
funny.
I'm a vampire.
Yes.
Well, I'm a vampire hunter. He's like, well good for me. You should fucking kill me or whatever. I
and
forget
it was
what
so
the
good
thing
because
is.
they were actual vampires.
Yeah.
Like they had like stakes or whatever.
Right.
I forget. Yeah.
In the bar.
It was so good. Like this Paranormal Wellington was very funny. That ended up being a whole spin-off TV show.
What we do
following
in
those
the
two
shadows.
cops that were in that movie.
Oh wow.
Yeah. They ended up starring in a show about a Paranormal Wellington.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fucking TV, man.
I know TV. They
do whatever you want.
There's a What We Do in the Shadows TV show.
Yeah,
as
that's
well.
what I thought you were talking
Yeah.
about. FX, man. FX loves just taking movies and making them into TV shows.
It's an easy button.
Yeah.
Easy button to press.
Yeah. They can just
And
do
it's
whatever.
Disney now.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was Fox.
Well, that
before.
explains why Taika is all over that motherfucker.
Yeah. Did he? Where's that? That I saw he did that Time Bandits show.
Oh yeah, that's Disney.
Is that Disney? Oh wow.
Pretty sure.
I know Terry Gilliam made the first one.
And then Reservation Dogs is also FX. And
Oh yes.
Taika is
yes.
like a part of that as well. Yeah.
But right on.
Fuck Taika.
In a bad way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That guy.
Maybe that's a conversation for another time. Oh, slow down there.
He's kicked off the island.
Oh.
Nah, just like, I don't know.
I mean, I understand what I think I understand what you're saying was it's just not he feels like he's sold out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I just lose respect for people who go Hollywood.
Yeah.
And not even like, oh, I don't care. Okay, like I feel like the Mexican trio of Guillermo del Toro, Alfonso Cuarón, and Alejandro Iñárritu, those are directors that to me do it right. Like one for you, one for me type of mindset where they can still go back and make like the movies that we know them for. Whereas what Taika has done is like a complete 180, like subsumed into the machine now, and we don't get Taika Waititi movies anymore.
Yeah.
We get Disney movies with his name on it.
Yeah.
And that's like, I just like, it's disrespectful to like the cinema fellowship, whatever. Like, you know, basically what, I just saw this thing, basically what Barry Jenkins is doing to us right now.
Let me see. Oh, I'm looking at
It's like an incomplete thread tweet, but this is just like how I feel.
Oh yeah.
Like a person who makes this type of movie.
Yeah, Barry Jenkins, for those that don't know, he made Moonlight, which obviously has so much to say, and is now making Mufasa.
Right.
Yeah.
To go from that to that is like...
It is wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just like... Yeah.
There's still time. He's just getting that money. It's just movies, Kevin.
Yeah.
It's just business.
But his last movie was like...
The soccer one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like so formulaic.
Yeah. I did watch the Our Flag Means Death show that he at least was involved in.
Yeah, I heard that was really funny.
I like it a lot, and it had a lot of really great things to say, and I appreciated it. And that felt like a more return to form and a more risk-taking Taika Waititi. But that was him in an acting role.
Yeah.
He wasn't the showrunner or anything like that.
Right. Yeah, he just
different.
He takes on a lot of roles, and
yeah.
I know he's always creatively stimulated and stuff, so I respect his ability to keep making things. But when you come from this type of film or Hunt for the Wilder People or Boy, these are like, I don't know, these are just so rich, and they're great movies, like movies people need versus movies that people want, which is like what I think all these other stuff are. Like the Thor stuff and like the Star Wars stuff. And
supposedly he's supposed to make a Star Wars film.
Yeah,
I don't know if that'll even happen.
Look at this title or the cover. It looks like Ben-Hur.
Oh yeah, I mean, on Letterboxd there's a picture of the untitled Taika Waititi Star Wars film, and it kind of looks like a Ben-Hur, or even like a what was that political cartoon? Like I'm a Bill on the Hill. What was that?
Conjunction Junction.
Yeah.
What's your function?
Yeah, exactly. The Schoolhouse Rock.
Schoolhouse Rock.
Yeah. It's got a little bit of that too.
Yeah. Some like 80s flair.
Yeah, but I would put money down that his movie never gets made, because Star Wars is great about announcing things that never happen.
And damn near he has like 5 movies that have been announced and have not been made.
Exactly, yeah. And he's probably on the hook for so many other movies too.
I mean, that's the thing with like The Machine, is that they'll have announced these things and like majority of them don't see the day of light.
It's kind of just like for stocks.
Yeah.
Like just to hit that stock button.
It's just a way to keep money flowing and keep people excited.
And Comic-Con is such a business now.
Yeah.
Like you go there, and I don't know if you heard, like the Oscars, they're trying to turn it into like a
market.
Exactly. Like they're dropping trailers for movies that are coming out, and stuff like that, like during the ceremony. They'll like come on stage and be like, and here's the trailer for this new film coming from Sony Pictures, that sort of thing. Like turning it into more of an exposition of like
a corporate thing.
Yeah. Stock go up, stonks.
But the Academy, I don't know. I feel like the Academy shouldn't bend to whatever.
I mean, they want ratings to go up.
I know, but I guess it's
I'm thinking about video games have done this. And like there's the Game Awards, which is literally this exact same thing. It's a game award show, but it is literally just announcing games top to bottom.
Can't they just have a different thing? Just make it a different event.
I mean, that was for video games. It was called E3, and it doesn't exist anymore.
But yeah,
it gets swallowed by these larger things.
Right.
And I know that there's CinemaCon, and there's just like, I think that movies are, in need of it. I don't actually think that they need
like
it, but this is what they want. Is they want like a Comic-Con style thing for movies
for Hollywood.
Yes.
That's okay. They can have that.
But it'll be the Oscars.
They can't have that.
Putting your foot down.
Yeah.
I mean, it's what the trade papers are saying. The trades are saying.
I mean, my processing is that like.
Oh, it might have already happened by the time this episode comes out.
Yeah, true. Like my initial processing is that like the Academy should stand for like art first, and shouldn't like bend to corporate whatever, especially when it comes to television, right? But at the same time, like television, the Academy Awards ceremony is what makes the Academy like most of their money.
I would imagine so, yeah.
So they kind of have to, and then all that money goes to film preservation and like Academy sort of like things. So in the end, it is a good thing that they are trying to build up the audience. You know what I mean? Television audience. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a weird it's a weird place to go
exactly.
to.
I mean, it still is like, it's so, and I know we agree on this, but the awards are arbitrary and they don't like, it's not necessarily right, or it's not.
Because what movies are they gonna fucking show at the Academy? Like Avatar 4?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to watch that at the fucking Oscars.
Yeah.
Like, show me Neon's next picture that they set to release for next year. Or A24's lineup. You know, like, show me stuff that I don't get from D23 or whatever.
Exactly. But, yeah, I feel like that's what...
but those are the people who are making those choices, right? Is the Disneys and the Universals and the fucking Warner Brothers or Discovery or whatever the fuck.
Yeah. And especially, I think the Oscars is on ABC and that's owned by Disney.
Oh, man.
So that's probably might even be requirements.
Crazy.
We live in a beautiful world.
In my studying of sports, is a huge proponent of that is television and like the history of television programming and like how we've created these sorts of like big mainstream events for us. Like Sunday Night Football was a program created to popularize the NFL.
Yeah.
And same with like the game of the week with the MLB and stuff. Like these are certain things that we've created to push like certain aspects of our culture.
Yeah.
And yeah, that makes sense how like movies, they say movies have died or movies are dying out or whatever they're saying, right? So it makes sense that they would want some sort of like cultural push of like building an event thing beyond what we already have, because obviously it's not working to them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Kind of,
Well, this was a podcast about vampires.
But it makes sense because Hollywood is vampiric.
Yeah. Oh. It's interesting, like, to think about, to kind of look back at even this episode, like, and I said this before we jumped on, but this feels still like a part one of more. I think that our commentary on vampire films will get more in depth and interesting.
What questions do you have going forward? What do you want to see in a vampire? Or like, what are you curious about when it comes to the vampire movies?
I'm definitely...
knowing what we know now.
I'm still very curious of when the more queer angle became more clear. And when that... Because it feels like at a certain point, it's much more overt.
Sure.
And that thread interests me a lot in seeing what that does, and also kind of when it kind of like some of like the first humorous things, and honestly I can probably even think about it's probably like when Dracula was with like Laurel and Hardy or whoever those characters are. I think it's Laurel and Hardy, right? Those two comedic actors from the old days would like them and Frankenstein or them and Dracula. And so that's probably, like, just thinking out loud, that's probably when like it started to become comedic. But yeah, I think I'm interested in just seeing a little bit more of the pieces to this puzzle.
Right.
Because I think I'm still missing a lot, but I think we got a good swath of what it looks like to kind of be in a couple different genres.
Yeah. My hypothesis is that Hays Code has something to do with the queerness thing.
Yeah.
That you might start to see differences around that era, especially with culture becoming more like the gay rights stuff and of the counterculture movement of the 70s. You might start seeing shift in that decade, maybe.
I'm also thinking that the Hays Code itself, when vampire movies were coming out during the Hays Code, that might have even been when it became like much more overtly sexual. Sure. Because it could be sexual without being sexual.
Right. It was permission to do those things.
Exactly. It could get someone close to your neck.
Right. Without it being sexual.
Yeah. So that might have been what also kind of turned up the heat.
Sure. Yeah. Or maybe that's why they kept going to that thing. Yeah.
So that's what we're going to get on the next one.
Yeah.
I'm excited to jump back in.
Are there like movies off the rip that you kind of are like, I want to watch this now?
I truly, I mean, I definitely know I need to finish Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula.
Oh yeah,
that's one I'm really interested in. Obviously Nosferatu, but that will come.
Yeah. That'll be its own thing.
I'm interested in just some of the iterations of Dracula as well, like Christopher Lee's Dracula.
Christopher Lee's Dracula.
Yeah. Christopher Lee.
Yeah,
you know who he is. That ended up being a very big thing. That one came out in the 50s, so not too long. I mean, just 20 years after the OG. But yeah, what about you? Anything off the rip that tickles your fancy?
My friend just started watching like all the, what is it? Like the Frankenstein Dracula, like the sort of MCU,
like from way back in the day.
Movies. Yeah, from early. Yeah. So I'd be interested in going into that and seeing like the origins of these characters and stuff. Someone had jokingly said on set, because of the Nosferatu thing, I wonder what Bram Stoker would think of Transylvania or Hotel Transylvania.
Oh yeah.
Just like looking into the new age of vampires and like what it means today. Because even there's some good stuff from like more marginalized communities. Like there's this, I think, Iranian vampire movie featuring a woman vampire like walking through the streets and stuff.
Definitely foreign vampire films.
Right.
Really interesting.
Would be cool.
Just in general, foreign films, their take on this would be great.
And I know like certain, like the Philippines, for example, have like some sort of vampire-ish character.
Yeah. Do you know the name of it off the top of your head? Because I know there's a Hawaiian something. Oh, I thought you might.
Chupacabra. No, I don't know.
No. But it's something like that. It's something that it's kind of like sucks the blood of animals.
And this one is tied to like lesbianism and stuff. Asswing.
And I'm actually thinking of something that's in Costa Rica or like Central America.
Yeah.
Ahupia, I think is what it's called. It was in the Jurassic Park novel.
Oh wow.
They talk about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So there's a lot of interesting things. I think that also would be a really great direction to take, is the international angle.
For sure. Yeah. There's a lot of cool things, I feel like.
Exactly.
And then Twilight, you know. There's like so many different directions you can go with this.
Yeah. Clearly romantic.
Sexual.
Ones.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like, I mean, Twilight is an interesting thing. It's hard to say that it's like one thing or the other.
Yeah. I mean,
but having a romantic lead.
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely a, it's a teen romance sort of thing, right?
Like, yeah.
Sure. And I think of some similar films that like Lisa Frankenstein that came out recently and things of that. There is like this interesting, like putting it into the teen perspective, which is interesting as well. Right. I think that I'm trying to think. Is the Lost Boys vampires? Yeah. And that's a movie I'm really interested in.
They mentioned Lost Boys in What We Do in the Shadows.
Oh,
the spaghetti thing. He was like, "Haven't you seen the Lost Boys?"
That's so great.
Do you like spaghetti? Spaghetti? However he pronounces it. Why are you eating worms?
Oh, that's so good. He makes it look like we're...
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. But yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess there's more room.
There's so much more, and I feel like, even looking back at this episode, I'm like, I definitely look forward to...
Yeah, we just dipped our toes in.
Exactly. This is just dipping.
Yeah.
So stay tuned for the next one where you'll get the real depth, chapter 2.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. That's a wrap. Thanks for hanging on with us, folks. We'll see you on the Flippity Flop.
Bye.
Wind Reel and Print is a podcast by Salad Brain Productions. You can find us online on Instagram at Wind Reel and Print Pod. You can also find us wherever you get your podcasts. And please, if you like the show, leave a rating and review. We'll see you next time.